Hi everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoy our shows, please like our videos and subscribe to our channel. And you can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Age of Truth TV. I'm Lucas Alexander in Copenhagen, Denmark. It's the 12th of June 2019, and our guest today is a former Danish rock singer who became an alternative and spiritual Wayseer. He's an author, lecturer, and a researcher of mysticism, esoteric knowledge, religions, and the occult. Lars Muhl. Lars Muhl, welcome to the show and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
One of your biggest smash hit songs in Denmark in the 1980s was entitled Soul in Flames, Sjæl i Flammer, the Danish title. So the obvious first question is your soul in flames?
In many ways, yes. Before that song, in another way than today, because this was before I really met the Seer and started to practice. Up till then, I had, since my 15 years, when I was a young kid, been studying the esoteric traditions, religions and stuff like that, philosophy and so forth, but not really being into specific practices. So I was very much intellectual and very much based here. And all that, of course, changed when I came by this year. And so that song is in many ways a kind of borderline for my former life and my life today.
So it's actually almost symbolic that you wrote and you became very successful with a song called A Soul in Flames, and that's what you ended up being.
You could say so, yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about this Seer. For a lot of viewers who may not know how your whole history was, and we'll get into that today. The Seer, you yourself is a Wayseer in a way, but you met this man and you've done a documentary about this Seer called
Kalle de Montségur.
Kalle de Montségur.
Yes.
Am I saying that
Yeah,
right?
that's fine.
Okay.
Great.
Please briefly talk about how you met this man. He was a clairvoyant.
He was that kind of person that right from his youngest days, he had this gift of, looking behind everything, seeing through things. And he didn't know what to make of it. This is way back. So he became a military man. And it was during his military, he was a colonel, I believe, in the army, Danish army, that one day that he had to take his men to a training or something, and they had to pass some fields, and he went in to talk to the farmer about if that was all right. And on the kitchen table, he found this magazine about iris analysis, And he found that very interesting. But you should imagine this is in the beginning of the 1950s. So there was no real alternatives, holistic, anything in Denmark at that time. So he ended up leaving the army and being educated as a Heilpraktiker, which is a very, you could say, profound healer, doctor, kind of thing that you can only get at that time you could only get in Germany. So that was really the start for him to integrate, his abilities, his clairvoyant abilities, and start working with people. And slowly from there, it evolved, and he became more and more the Seer. So that's the brief story of him. And I came about him at the time when he started to evolve his seer abilities on a more collective level. Up till then, he had been working one-to-one with persons. Mm-hmm. I was taken ill for 3 years, and a friend introduced me to him, and he healed me after 5 minutes conversation on the telephone, got me out of bed. And half a year later, he invited me to become his, you could say, the apprentice of the wizard, the wizard's apprentice. So I worked with him very closely for 7 years. And that was when you could say that I really started to practice.
Mm-hmm. So in a way you can say that this man, this seer, Kalle de Montségur, when you met him, he almost had like a magic touch, because you have said that you were bedridden, mm-hmm. having an illness for 3 years, mm-hmm. not being able to move almost.
Yeah.
What was the problem? What was your illness?
Actually, as I said before, I hadn't practiced anything, but I had been studying. And you cannot study without practicing. So that was why I didn't take upon me my, what do you call it, the purpose of my life. And that is why if you don't do that, one day you will get something very heavy on the head, or somebody will leave you, or they kick you out from job, in order for you to wake up. And this was my wake-up call.
So do you think that that was the reason why you were there for 3 years?
Yes.
You would think that something else was wrong.
No, I think it was because you should imagine me starting to work with the spirituality was not something overnight. That had been ever since I was very, very young. And it all actually started when I was 10 years old and my little sister died. She was 6 years old. And the impact it had on me, it changed everything. And from that moment, I myself started to kind of have extraordinary abilities. Like I could see through the grown-ups here. If they thought one thing, said another, and did a third thing. And it was really scary. And I could see straight through it. And a lot of other things started to happen. So when I was 15 years old, I was really, really out there, on a limb. I didn't go to school. I had no training, no schooling at all.
So did you quit school?
I could not participate because I was much too, what do you call it?
Highly sensitive.
Yeah, sensitive, really.
In what way were you highly sensitive? What happened to you?
Just imagine that you go into a schoolyard with more than 1,000 kids, mm-hmm. the noise from it, but also when you have the ability to look, it was like there was a veil that had disappeared. I was too fragile, and when you have nobody to confer with and share this with, nobody understood it clearly.
Sensitive to sounds.
Yeah, and also sights, everything. So you find yourself very lonely in this. So I had to, and this was the reason why I started to play music. This was the time around in the beginning of the 60s when the youth movement and beat music and hippies and stuff like that, Beatles, Stones. So I was musical, but I had no musical ambition. But through my musicality, I came into a band and found a place in the world. So that was really the urge to find somewhere I could be, because I could not go to a 9-to-5 job or whatever. I knew that I had to find some place where I could be, because I would, like anybody who is incarnating in this, we have to find our place here in order to start doing what we're supposed to do. And it's almost certain that it never goes the way that everybody else thinks that you should do.
Right.
So they quit the norms and start listening inside, within.
So you actually became a rock singer in Denmark, and you had quite a good career, several hit singles, and you were touring a lot around the country, and you even did a song for the Danish Eurovision Song Contest. Lots of different things happening in that world of entertainment for a long time. What suddenly changed in that way so that you, in fact, closed the door to that world and never really looked back?
You see, what not so many people are aware of, I studied all the way. I could go to Roskilde Festival and do a concert, and 2 minutes before I was supposed to be on the grand scene, I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and they were knocking the door. Hey, come on! Suddenly, from being there and just being fed to the lions, and at one point I really saw myself from outside and thought, what the hell is he doing there? So I quit touring concerts, but I kept writing songs for other people, and I also did a few records. But I was away from public life, moved to an island called Samsø, and that was where I suddenly one day fell ill. And that was because I couldn't take the real step to leave the business for good. But when I met this man, that was the first thing he asked me to do. Go back home and cut all ties. Burn all bridges behind you.
Did he say that?
Yes.
Why though?
Because he said, or else, you will always think that if what you are going to do with me, you don't find that entertaining, or you could always go back to the old way. But you see, this is the problem with most people. They always want guarantees for this and that, so they are never really present, in what they are supposed to do. Because they are here and there and everywhere. And if you're all over the place, you are not there. So this was something I have read about at that time, in all the old traditions. But when I met this man, I really understood that this is what it's all about. If you're not present, you can rock and roll, you can scream and you can shout. I mean, it will just be swirling around, the center of what you're supposed to be, but you'll not be the center. And that is what we are supposed to be.
But couldn't you combine those two things? I mean,
No.
it's not a far cry
Yeah.
from being spiritual to write maybe spiritual songs or still be on the stage.
Exactly. But not at that time, not at that moment, because I needed to go deeper than most people. I needed to. So when I started to work with the Seer, he took me up to the mountain of Montségur, and I was carrying stones on my rucksack. Every stone represented something, one of my shadows, one of my issues that I had to deal with. So when you, in a very physical way, are carrying them up on the top of the mountain.
Real stones.
Yeah, and taking them and take each one of them and say, okay, this represents my fucked up relationship with women, for example. And you said, okay, now everything, we are finished now. Now, from now on, there will be a new way in this area. So now I just thank you for everything, goodbye. But I had to do it again and again and again. Up, down, up, down, up, down.
Like Jesus on Mount Sinai.
You can say that. But this was a kind of purification work that was necessary for me. Maybe it won't be that for you if you went there. But anyway, he knew what I needed and he provided it.
Mm-hmm. You never missed the world of glamour and touring and all these people.
I was relieved, I remember he sent me back home and I did a kind of, what do you call it, a best of album, and I had press conferences where I said, now this is it and I am not coming back. And I remember when the last journalist left Samsø and I was walking, he was going this way to the ferry and out in the world, I was going down the road into the woods, and I felt so relieved. It was such a relief, because from now I knew I had to take myself serious and take responsibility for me.
Why has it been important for you still to be a public speaker? I mean, in a way, still using your fame as a public speaker on spiritual topics and the esoteric and all of the things you've been doing for almost 20 years now. And in a way, you've become almost more famous for that, at least today, for doing that. And you've become very successful also as an author.
When I met the Seer, what I didn't know was that one of the books I've written at that time, my second book, I wrote that 4 or 5 years before I met him. A good friend of mine who knew the Seer, the one who introduced me to the Seer, have sent that book to the Seer. And he never read anything, but he read that book.
Before you met him?
And he said to my friend, I'm going to work with this man because of that book. So, but I didn't know before a year after I met him. So he said to me, you know, when I was working with the Seer, he was kind of working from behind, you know, behind the scenes. Yes. He said, there is a reason for you to have been into showbiz and to be in rock and roll. You should learn to enter a stage and be centerpiece and be frontman, because now you are going to spread this knowledge to as many people as possible. This is not my job, this is your job. So that was what he prepared me to for doing. And I had a huge amount of knowledge about religion and spirituality up to that time. I had read everything, Steiner, Martinus, all the Vedas, the Christian mystics, and so forth, you know. So it was for me at that time was I had to practice in order to be able to speak from my own experience and not from books. You understand? And that's what makes the difference. If you can go out and not just repeat what you have read in a book, but talk about what you have experienced, you can inspire other people. And this is something that most people forget, because everybody reads those who read spiritual books, oh, what a wonderful book. I really feel in alignment with it. But 5 minutes later, you are out in the world and you forgot all about it. Your experience. It's fine to find inspiration in a book, but your experience are what matters. This is the only thing that you can go by, really.
So what do you think people will get from your books? How many books have you written now?
Oh, 25 or something.
And actually today there's a book launch of your latest book.
Written 2 years before I met the Seer. It had been lying there waiting to be released today. But we can talk about that later, because that's a little bit interesting.
Right. Did you always feel that you were destined to go in this direction?
Yes.
I mean, even when you were singing and doing all that?
Yes.
You always felt this was the way?
Right from I was a kid. I knew that.
But you never knew how to channel that?
No, because the times were not ripe for that. I was not ripe. The times were not ripe.
Do you feel the time is more ripe for it now? Do you think things have
changed?
Yes.
Yeah, things are changing, and more people are waking up, and that's why everything is so polarized.
Polarized.
Yeah, black and white, and so forth. And so we will. I think within the next 2 years, and this is for certain. There's no doubt about it. We will just look out for January next year. What is going to happen, because everything that is going on now will really blossom, that those in powers, they will go to any length in order to get what they want, more money, more power. But at the same time, more and more people out here, what you call ordinary citizens, will wake up and say, hey, something's wrong.
What is your most important message for people, the human race, at this particular time? We are now, as I said, in June 2019. What do you think is the most important and urgent message for people to hear?
It is to realize that you yourself hold the power to change things. But on a spiritual level, you need to accept that you are not only a physical body and have a psyche. You are also a spiritual body, first and foremost. You are a spirit that right now, for a limited amount of time, is caught up in a physical body. But as the Essenes, which is the mystery school where Jesus was raised, as they say, you only have one life, only one, but that life is forever. You step forward and you are incarnated. When that incarnation is over, you step back. You get a new role and a new costume, and you enter the scene, the stage once more, play a role, and so forth. But maybe you're not going to come back here. There are so many other places out there you can go back, other levels of consciousness, other planets, other universes, other star systems. And that's exactly why Jesus in the New Testament says, my Father's mansion, my Father's house has many mansions. My Father's kingdom have many mansions. There's so many other places to go. And right now, as we sit here and speak, a lot of new souls to the earth, that is, they are old souls, but they have never incarnated here before, come in on the earth plane now, more and more, because something very important is going to happen.
How do they enter this dimension?
They enter this dimension, they are being born, incarnated, like children, of maybe your children. And how do we welcome them? By a diagnosis and some medicine, Because if they didn't fit into those small square boxes, imagine beautiful circles, beautiful triangles, and we try to put them into small, because this is the rule set that we have made for everybody. We are like, we can only use one leg. We can only use a very, very limited part of our brain. We are so limited that you almost vomit just thinking about it, We have to wake up.
Because we experience everything through our five senses on a three-dimensional plane.
That's completely all right. We need that. We need our ego in order to be here. But if it is it's like an animal running loose, a wild animal running loose, if we don't connect to our higher self. And that's what it's all about, being here. So that's my advice to anybody. Start looking within for what you have been looking out there for all your life. People are running from here to there in order to solve their problems. And the answer have been, and the solution have been there all the time, from day one.
So where do these souls come from? Where do they originate from?
From the place where we all come from.
Where?
From what the concept you call God. That principle that have created everything. That is not an old man up in the sky with a long white beard. But there's nothing wrong with that archetype. I mean, if you, as a lot of children, they pray to that, nothing wrong with it. But a lot of people, they don't recognize later in life that that archetype is first and foremost just an archetype for kids.
So what is it then? A source? Force?
Max Planck, who was a quantum physics, said in 1944 in a big convention where Einstein and Niels Bohr, everybody was there. He said, through my work with physics, I have experienced that behind everything created, there is a higher intelligence that is managing everything. To me, that's the most profound explanation of what God is.
But not a person. Person-looking being.
Come on. This is a power. This is the power that is in everything. And when you can read in the Bible that power created man in its own image. What does that mean? You can look at me, I can look at you. We are not looking the same exactly. So what is that God? What does God look like? So we are looking the wrong place. This is the power within. This is the power of life. This is the power of creation. And this is exactly that image that we talk about, is something that we have to unfold in order to succeed in whatever we are going to do in this life. That is why we are here. You have your purpose, I have mine. And if you're not taking your purpose on you, your cross or whatever it is, nobody will come and do it for you. So your work looks maybe a little like the guy over there. My work looks like a lot of other people, but not all the way. There's some specific thing that makes you unique. All the quantum physics knew about these things. They also found out that, wow, Einstein, he said it again and again and again. Every time there's this wall and I cannot go any further. I open the Bhagavad Gita, I put down a finger, and I read something randomly and got inspired from inspiration. To me, I mean, in many ways, we think of ourselves now as very advanced, but in fact, we are more primitive than we have been. We are just a little more sophisticated in being primitive. Yes?
But you're talking a lot about the Bible and the history of the Bible. You're talking about, in your work, you mention a lot about angels. You talk about Jesus, or Yeshua, as you call it, which is the original Hebrew way of saying it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But do you actually believe that Jesus was a real man walking this earth with that message?
No, I know.
So you believe that the Bible is correct in the way of describing what Jesus was?
Listen, in order to understand the Bible, you see, why are we so primitive now? At the time of Jesus, there was a Jewish philosopher in Alexandria who said, you must not read the Torah, which is the Old Testament, and take it
literally.
Yeah. This is metaphorical and symbolical readings about, for example, Solomon was a real person, but in the Bible, he represents something within you, like King David, like this person, like that. They are archetypes, you know. That was why Carl Gustav Jung, when he first time found out about these things, that it was already there. Things that he himself thought that he and some of the other psychologists have invented or found. He said, these people, they knew all about these things. So what went wrong? We have taken everything literally, and that's why religion is so fucked up in many ways, that we have missed the point completely. And when Jesus in the New Testament says, follow my example, and you can do even greater wonders than I, we need to go in and look at what did that man do. He was using the whole packet.
But how do we know?
Know what?
How do we know that what is described in the New Testament, in the Bible, that is real and not orchestrated by a power ruling elite at the time in order to control the masses who at that time had no source of information whatsoever and could be controlled? It's still successful today, isn't it?
What you say there is completely right. But how did they fuck things up? By not understanding or by not translating the words exactly. You know, see, I started in the 80s to study the language that Jesus spoke, which is Aramaic. And if you do that, you will find that each and every word have 8, 9, 10 different meanings. So, if you take a few words of Jesus and say, afterwards, and you are going to translate that into Greek, which one of the meanings should I stand? You're not going to pick one. You have to make an essence of the whole. So that's where it went wrong. So instead of doing that, maybe they didn't understand that was the rule of the holy language like that. They picked one in order to orchestrate exactly what you have just told me. So we have a very limited version of the scriptures. That was why there was so much commotion when they found, first in 1945, the Gnostic Gospels, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Truth, because they told a complete other story. Complete. And in the beginning, the church and all those people, they wanted to get rid of it and said, this is not worth anything. Now, many years after, they have found that maybe, probably, the Gospel of Thomas and Gospel of Thomas is the oldest words of Jesus we have. So, and in 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls were found. The Dead Sea Scrolls, who were written by the Essenes, that mystery school where Jesus and John the Baptist were educated. And if you read them, you get a completely new perspective on the whole thing. And if you take everything together, you will start to find out there's so much more to the story of Jesus and his teachings.
But they say that the Bible and these Christian holy scriptures were written maybe a couple of hundreds of years after he supposedly lived on this earth.
No. We know now that the Gospel of Matthew and Mark is within the first century, in that century where Jesus lived. And we know now that probably the Gospel of Thomas is from the year 2, 3 after his death.
So you would call yourself a Christian, a believer of the Christian way of
I don't
believing?
know, because when you say Christian, you kind of people think you are in agreement with ordinary Christianity. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say I am that, because I've taken it beyond that, because I'm going into the universal teachings of Yeshua, and that incorporates the feminine in a much broader way. That was really why that man was crucified, because he took knowledge from the mystery school, and even the Essenes, his own masters, didn't know what to expect from him. Their only purpose, the Essenes, was to pave the way for the Messiah. And when they found him, Yeshua, they raised him, but they were taken completely by surprise the day he was initiated and left and started to educate ordinary people, together with a woman, Mary the Magdalene. That was more.
Some people suggest Mary Magdalene was a prostitute, and other people say that she was Jesus's wife.
Yeah. But listen, she was an initiated person, and her initiation name was Magdal, the exalted one. That was what it means. Mary, the exalted one, the raised one.
So do you also believe that Jesus was the Son of God, not the son of a man, virgin birth?
Mary was a virgin when she made it with Joseph. But to this day, we have totally misunderstood. To this day, you can go to Israel and you can hear the rabbis telling the congregation, the brides and the bridegroom, to go into the bridal chamber and mate as often as possible. Why? Because when they do that, they manifest the Holy Spirit, the Shekinah. And this is exactly when there's a purpose. This is not just something, it's scratchable, you scratch back kind of thing, or by accident you're getting pregnant. No, then you exactly, when the moon is right, we go in, because this soul is coming through now. They had astrology and everything, so they match things up after the stars and after the times. So that exact soul that was supposed to come in through that coupling or mating would have the best opportunities. And it was exactly the same way with Jesus, because Mary, the mother of Jesus, was chosen between 12 virgins. She was only 13 years when she was chosen. And so in that way you call them virgins, because when you go in and mate with a purpose where you manifest the Shekinah, you're still a virgin after that. You're still considered a virgin, because this is a kind of purification, And but if you don't know anything about the customs of this, because you remember Jesus was a Jew, he had never heard about Christianity. It was not invented at his time. You must remember that. The church have invented their own complete story with everything, and there's nothing wrong with that in a way, but it has nothing to do
The
with
church has used Christianity and other religions as a power tool.
Exactly.
For control.
Yeah.
But how can you sit there and know that Jesus was a real man and it was the way that it is described in the Bible, as you say?
I'm not the only seer who says this. A lot of seers through times have all participated in creating the whole picture of this. And if you read all the scriptures, not only the Bible, but all the scriptures, take it all to the Jewish scriptures, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Gnostic Gospel, put them all together. I mean, come on. It maybe it's the most described person, historical person that have ever lived, in a way. I was there. I was a scribe in that monastery or that university at the Dead Sea. And
you were there with Jesus at the
not
time?
With there. He was not there when I was there. I only met that man once in that incarnation. But I know for sure that he was around.
Really?
And other people have been incarnated at that time, knowing that how things were. Have each had their role in this play.
Have you seen this through regression or through meditation?
As I see things.
How did you see it? Can you describe just briefly a moment of it?
Yeah. I mean, I sit down, I get some information on now it's the time to do things. So go down and I write my books and information comes in just like that.
Like a download?
It's just like pressing the button and it starts rolling. Yeah. And I know exactly when to stop it again, because every time I try to interfere, if I in any way intellectual try to interfere with the messages, everything is screwed up and it'll just be diluted. So and it's so obvious when you see. Have you ever heard about the Course in Miracles?
Yes.
Okay. That lady who was channeling that, she didn't believe anything of what she got. She was fighting the messages. She was highly educated and intellectual. Every time she got these messages, they're supposed to be from Jesus. She was writing them down and she wouldn't agree, because they didn't. She felt that this was too much. She was, so she tried to rewrite it. But the day after, she was corrected and said, "Hey, go back to what you've written. You need to." And she never, to her deathbed, she never complied to anything. But though she said to her accomplices that she was working with, "This is so significant, but I cannot cope with it because I cannot live up to it," or whatever. She was,
She couldn't explain what actually really happened to her.
She only knew that these things came to her.
But could there be disinformation
Yes.
in the other realm, in the realm above the three-dimensional existence frequency that we experience everything on at the moment? What are your thoughts on the idea that angels might, well, obviously be interdimensional beings, but even some kind of faster vibrating extra-terrestrial alien entities from higher dimensions, for example? And why are they only good? When we talk about angels, could they actually take form as good beings and actually be, let's just say, negative beings, like what the Gnostics called the Archons, the Muslims call the jinn, or the Christians call demons?
Let's stick to the four archangels that most people know about: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. These are powers that is part of the creation. In the moment when everything was created, these four powers was released. And they are not somebody standing over there with some wings on the back. They are actually powers that's here, there, and everywhere. And everyone who incarnate in this universe are dealing with them every day without knowing it. They represent four very different energies of creation. You're talking about jinns and
Archons?
Yeah. You see, Archons. When Jesus, you remember he went out in the desert to fast for 40 days. This was something he did in a special cave near the university at the Dead Sea where I have been. I have also been there. And he was sitting there for 40 days with a little bit of juice, water, and that was it, and different form of scriptures. And after, you can imagine, after 14 days, he started to have weird things coming to him. That was the wild animals, his own shadows, all his issues and mischiefs he had to face. And that is what they describe as wild animals. And in the end, Satan comes there. Who is Satan? That is the ego, telling him, oh, come on, man, you're the chosen one. You don't have to sit here anymore. Come on, let's go out and conquer the world, because you can do it. And he would, like Hitler. He conquered the world because he took the masses by, hold them there and did what he wanted to for a limited period of time. But Jesus said, no, because I know my real destiny. And he went out to do that. Satan is not something out there. While we create a Satan that is not part of ourselves, it's because we won't take responsibility.
So Satan is not something that exists in an intradimensional form, like a demon, like an entity taking
form. We
form.
are co-creators, and we can create this or that. It's up to us. Why? Because we got free will. So when people say, how can there be a God, such a thing, a God, when you see people are fighting there, they are starving there, it's not God who made this. This is the result of the choices we made as co-creators of this thing. Remember that in the Gospel of John, Jesus is telling us, remember, you are all children of God. He's not the only one.
But why, if you don't believe that Satan is something that can manifest, why do you think there are so many satanic worshippers, people who are working within the elite circles, supposedly worshipping Satan, even doing terrible sacrifices?
They are worshipping the ego. And when the ego is disconnected from its higher self, it becomes the beast that is capable of doing anything without any form of compassion or whatsoever. It has only its own, going after its own purposes.
So are there no entity beings, beings on another realm who are negative?
When we create noise, if you and I are not connected, we will start to create noise around us. That means hate, jealousy, whatever, preconception of this and that, and we don't believe this, we don't believe, and this is the enemy, and it's his fault that my life is not working, and it's, so forth. We are not taking responsibility for anything. So we create monsters outside of ourselves. And they grow because you give them energy. And they will also have what you call a double on the lower astral levels. And that's where all the Archons, all the, you would call the evil stuff is there. But it's only noise. And you know what? Spiritual work, prayer, what is that all about? Prayer is a knife to cut through the noise. It's not to connect to some, but it is the instrument in order to clear the way so you can start to connect.
But a lot of people who are praying all the time, this is one of the most successful practices in the world. Billions of people around the world are still believing in Islam and Christianity in its various forms, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Judaism. They pray. So when they pray, and a lot of things are happening in terms of bad stuff within their religion, which is not necessarily part of their religious scriptures. Hatred, guilt, shame, feeling of not being good enough, having to work very hard to earn a small living on this earth. What does it help to pray except for some personal comfort if their life doesn't change? Do you think that there is another spiritual realm above this one, which is part of orchestrating even an illusion that we have to worship an entity or a god, which may even be a false entity or a false god?
What is false is something we create. It's because we haven't understood things rightly, and because we hang on to the ego.
We, the churches, or the general people?
Everybody.
But people are following the churches.
No, I won't see it in general. Religion is for those who fear hell. Spirituality are for those who have been there. You see? Don't hang your hat on any priest or anybody. Hang your hat on that higher thing because you are a child of God. That's what it is said in New Testament again and again and again.
If we go beyond this earthly realm and go beyond talking about the New Testament,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on life on other planets and alien beings, extraterrestrial
What
beings
about
from
them?
other star systems?
Yeah,
What are
but-
your knowledge about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, my thought is that there is, as many planets you can think of, there's huge, massive, different kinds of life out there. And we here on Earth have been visited and are still being visited by some of those entities. But you see, there's so many different, like we are still driving around in cars and going with it, sending a rocket out to Mars. You know, if you take the Hermetical scriptures, they are from 100 years before Jesus. Read them. And you will see that if you came in a spaceship to the Essenes at the Essenes, hey, do you hop on board? Come, let's take a ride out there and go to Mars or something. And they will just look at you and they will think, how primitive. Why? Because in the Hermetical scriptures you can read how you here now can go anywhere you want by just sitting there. There's no limits. And they tell it so precisely and at length that this is how you can go anywhere. They say, what is not here, you cannot find anywhere. What is out there is also here. So what do they mean by that? Is there life in the universe out there? The best question is there life on Earth?
But if we were able to, let's just say, like teleport or just go into another dimension through meditation.
This is what you do every night, please.
If you could do that at some point, or some highly elevated human being could do that, why do you think we're being kept from that information? Why do you think our frequencies are being held down, suppressed these days?
Because at one time, humans started to forget about where they came from, what they were doing here, and where they were going.
Who did that?
It's happened over time, you know. There has been many civilizations before us here, and we are now finding out, we find out that there have been life on Earth much earlier than we thought.
Atlantis and Lemuria.
I mean, everything. And one day they will find out that we had all these powers that we think is very evolved today. I mean, they had them millions of years ago also, and they fucked it up. And now we are about to fuck it up. Why? Because we forget we forget that there is a power that we are connected to and that we are working together with. When we disconnect, the ego takes over and wants to be in charge of everything. And it's hybris, you know.
But now you're talking about the general person. Yeah. Could there be a reason, an agenda behind this, let's just say, hijack of consciousness?
It's a forgetfulness. Everything is forgetfulness. We have forgotten who we are and what we're doing. I think we are all kind of misled for that only reason that we have forgotten why we are misled.
Because we could become much more powerful spiritually if we remembered.
But what is going on today is that we have all our money is on technology. That meaning that now we think that to sit in a car that can drive by itself, fantastic. I mean, this is just so primitive in order for what we were really capable of doing, you know. But there's nowhere you go to a school, there's no mystery schools anymore. There is a teacher here and there, one has a little bit of this, another about a little bit. But remember, at the time of Jesus, there was mystery school who knew all about these things. And you can read it in the scriptures. But you need to understand how to read them in order to get the message.
But the Seer, I have seen your friend, the Seer, say that he would have nothing to do with religions.
Yes.
He did not want to have anything to do with that way of thinking. Yeah. And he even said, if I am wrong several times, I will quit. Maybe he was never wrong.
You see, I don't know exactly what you have seen.
There's an interview with him where he
Only
says that.
that exact interview is actually something that was meant to be, what do you call them, some tests for a whole documentary on him. But he was not satisfied with it, and the filmmaker wasn't either. But the day he died, that filmmaker put it out there on the internet, and this was against what the seer himself thought. He didn't want that out because he was not on top of himself, as he said.
It was actually a very good and very direct and seemingly honest interview.
If you knew him, you would say,
But you've made a film about him.
Yes, a documentary.
A documentary. How can people, if they would like to see that, even from, let's just say, from abroad and in other countries, will they be able to see it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's in English, it's in French, in German, but you cannot go and buy it, and you cannot see it on internet. Why? Because I promised him to take care of his spiritual legacy. And the first and foremost, he said, people need to be present. And nowadays, everything is available on the net. So if you can go and see it whenever you want, you don't know if you will, I can see it tomorrow, I see a little bit here. So you will not be present while this thing is going on. Now, it's shown in the theaters, and people, they come from all over. Some people, they come, if it's in Denmark, they come from all over Scandinavia to see the movie. It's the most viewed documentary for the past 2 years in Denmark.
In the cinema?
Yes, without any kind of other public relation than on the internet. Nobody have written about it, nobody have
in the mainstream media, nobody has written about it?
Nothing. So it's all happening on its own terms. And you see, those footage I've made there was actually done, some of them with hidden camera, exactly at the moment when I was working with him on the Holy Mountain, right from the beginning when I met him. So you are actually there when it's happening. And you will get a feel of his humor, his brusqueness, and his how.
He was quite a character.
He was a character,
Yes.
Yeah.
Like yourself.
I don't know. I'm just me,
You spoke about alien beings visiting Earth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of alternative researchers and investigative journalists also are talking about some extraterrestrial entities that are working with our governments behind the scenes. I mean, top elite factions of the government, such as reptilians and other alien beings, part of this Illuminati structure, New World Order. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know if I should comment on that, because I will just frustrate a lot of people if I start talking about it. Yeah.
Okay. Have you yourself ever seen a UFO
Yes.
or something that you don't really know?
No, I knew what it was.
What was it?
It was a vehicle from outer space.
What did it look like?
It looked like the ordinary thing of what you have seen.
A flying saucer?
Yeah, some kind of, yeah.
When did that
That
occur?
was, it was happening while me and the lead singer of the band, we were in Zealand. This was very early in the morning in October, and suddenly the car stopped and we couldn't. No. It was just because we run dry of predator.
Okay.
But anyway, so we had to walk from there to the place where we're living out in the country, and there was millions of stars, and you could see satellites, and so we were just standing there, watching, and suddenly, out there from there, there came, a satellite would go like this,
Yeah, a Sputnik.
Yeah. And suddenly, two parallel lights came in, like, standing there. And you said, what, did you see that movement? Where? Look at there. He could see nothing because they were standing still. And suddenly, and then
And you both saw it?
Yeah. And so then we came back to, we were living at a farm at that time, we were playing there. And we told the farmer, and he said, "Oh, I see that almost every day." He said, that was nothing new to him.
So first it appeared as two shining lights.
Yes.
And then you saw the objects.
Yeah, they came in, like standing there, no?
Right.
Yeah.
And then you saw it was like a flying saucer. How big would you say they were?
I don't know. It's
Far away from you.
They were quite big,
What year was that?
This is 1978.
78?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a long time ago.
I don't know. Yeah.
So this was actually before you
But-
had your big break as a musician, really, and way before you started in this field.
Yeah. No, I was reading and doing a lot of research within this, and I was also very much interested in UFOs. And actually, before that, I really asked permission to see some of these entities, some of those UFOs.
You asked.
Yes, and then they were there.
When did that happen? When did you start to be able to do that?
I mean, from I was 12 years old or something, I had these abilities. I got information, and I didn't know what to do with all these things.
So you've seen it quite a lot.
Yes. Yep.
Have you seen different forms of spaceships? Many people talk about different ways.
Listen, you see, there is those entities that come in that is what you would see physical, but some of them are just, they are actually there all the time. We don't see them because they are behind the veil, So this is
Invisibility veil, cloaked.
When I worked with the Seer, one of the first thing I had to learn was to be invisible. He said, you cannot learn to be invisible before you know how to be visible. And you have been in showbiz now for 25 years, so you know all about being visible. Now I want you to learn how to be invisible. Meaning what? That you can walk into a crowd without them knowing you or seeing you. Why? Because you don't need their approval anymore. You know who you are. You know that you are all right. You know also you are a bastard sometimes. But you take the whole packet, you see. And this is taking responsibility for yourself. And the minute you can do that, you can do anything.
And people won't notice you?
No.
You have quite a distinctive look yourself.
It doesn't matter. You can dress in all the colors you want and go straight into the center, look people in the eye, and they won't really recognize you. Of course they will see you, but being invisible is about being there without being there. That people don't really, For example, if you come into a discussion and those two people, they're talking about something that you know all about, and you find out within a few seconds, you know so much more about them. Do you interfere? Do you correct them? No. You keep your tongue. Why? Because you're invisible. And you don't need to. You don't need to make a fuss about yourself anymore, because you know who you are. So you don't need their approval. You don't need to show them that you know so much more about this. So from that, you take things to the next level. And this is actually the first step for you to enter the world of answers.
So how do you know that what you are channeling, what you're feeling, what you think is the truth, how do you know that it is the truth? Is that's a sense, that's a feeling. But a lot of people, they have a different truth. Some of it is maybe very similar to yours, but then there's a twist or there's a difference. So who has the truth? You or those people or all of you?
One thing is the truth, another way is to express it. Yes. So I think it's more when some of the spiritual seers also that I know work maybe work on the same level and see the same things, but we express it differently. And maybe there's a reason for that, because my job is to expose a certain area of things, and another one is another thing, You see, one of the seers, the greatest now living seers, is Carol Clark from Wales, and she is so profound, you know. And because when you are yourself, it can be hard for yourself to see yourself within these realms. So you need to go to somebody else. And I work together with her, and she's so precise, you know, really, and like the seer.
She reaches your frequency on the same, let's say, wavelength that you're on.
Immediately. And she sees things where I go, even when I'm doing it in meditations or in my practices or in dreams at night. She knows exactly. If you choose to, she can go there and see what I'm doing.
Remote viewing?
Yes, call it whatever. So,
is that the same thing that you could do with what you said about spaceships, like UFOs?
There's so much, as you say, on the lower astral level, there's so much noise out there about almost everything that we are talking about now also within the spiritual community.
Absolutely.
And this is, of course, it's not that it's not right, but it isn't right. It's wrong and right at the same time, but for those people who are working in that way, it's right. This is their next step. This is but beyond that, there's other levels. And when the seer, I could give the seer your name, for example, and he didn't know who you were, and said, where did he live? He lives there and there. Okay, just a minute. I'll go out and get his information. Go out and get his information. You think, I think this information is before time and space, he would say. And you will say, oh, this is going to take a long time. No. Because outside space, time and space is just beyond the ordinary. It's above all the astral levels, and it's there, clean and pure, the information about you. And it would take him within half a minute, he would come back and he would give me precise information about you, physically, psychological, and spiritual. He would say, this is a soul who is a very old soul. He have come in now in order to do this and that in this life. But he has some problems that is really standing between him and what he's really going to do. So he needs to address them before he can go any further. And if it doesn't address them, it will result in a physical illness that can evolve as this or that. And you would say, oh, I've tried it many times.
This was what happened to you, right?
Yes, he just read my documents, or what you call me, about
spiritual, esoteric documents
about me.
And this was why you were bedridden and feeling pain for 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not living up to expectations, your own expectations,
full potential,
then you need to wake up, and there's many ways to wake you up. You can get something hard on the head. Your wife can leave you. Your beloved can leave you. You can lose your job, or you can be, ridiculed, or whatever. And people say, "Oh, there's this guy. He's completely nuts," and nobody would talk to you.
Have you had the experience changing from being a rock singer and being out there in the public eye now to be in the public eye as a spiritual teacher, talking about things that a lot of people wouldn't understand? Have you experienced ridicule or people saying, what is Lars Muhl actually doing now?
Yeah, I probably had a lot of ridicule. I'm probably, to this day, people out there think this man is crazy. I don't know. I'm not on that vibe, So I'm more dedicated to open up hearts and give what I have to give. And when I've done that, I leave.
In your work, you talk a lot about reincarnation and about souls being reincarnated in different bodies at different times with different purposes. But how can we possibly change our soul contracts in a way that we don't have to maybe go through these, let's say, negative things that a lot of people on this planet are going through. And that also leads me to the question of what happens to us when we die. Let's just say the more popular consensus about reincarnation is that we go through this tunnel of light, we see a life review, we go to this white light heavenly frequency. We meet dead relatives looking their best, or see God or Jesus or Muhammad, Allah, depending on what we believe in, or Buddha. And then we have to correct certain things that we did not do good in the previous life, and then we can come back to the body in a new body with a wiped memory, not able to remember, and then go through another lifetime of either this or that, good or bad.
Yeah.
Do you think, a lot of people say that this is actually also a constructed trap, maybe by these Archons, demons or jinns, in order to enslave people in a reincarnation, let's say, karma wheel, soul harvesting program, in order for them to go back to another body? Because they feed on the human being souls, these entities. What do you feel when I say this?
You know, it's part of the lower astral frequency, and this is all part of the noise that you had to cut through in order to. It's not that difficult, you know. It is if you have a bad dream, and that when you go into, if you cannot reach beyond that astral level, it is like digging into a bad dream, and to connect to Archons or whatever you like to call them, or jinns and stuff.
Or people see angels there.
Yeah. But it's all man-made on that level.
So why do they reincarnate?
Listen, in the Gospel of Philip, who was found among those secret Gospels, it says, truth didn't come into the world naked. It came dressed as archetypes in order for people to understand it. So the way to connect is through archetypes. So we have archetypes of the devil, of Satan, of holy people, this and that. The seer got me out of bed. There was a half year before I met him. So within that half year, I built up an image of a very holy man that could walk on the water. So when I actually met him, everything crumbled. And he didn't live up to any of my expectations, besides that I knew all the time that within 5 minutes on the telephone, he got me out of bed. So he smoked, he had a drink. And a lot of people, when they have read the book or seen the documentary, they say, how can he be a holy man? I said, what do you mean holy man? He never ever claimed to be a holy man, but he helped thousands of people. So forget about all these images of an holy man or holy. I mean, that Hell's Angels rocker over there can be the wise man of today. But you pass him by because you are scared. Because he is not, you cannot cope with this image, So we are so much taken about appearances, And we should forget about all this, because they are also telling us something about limiting norms, about what is right and what is wrong. And you can see it within the spiritual communities, that a lot of people are walking around and playing holy this and holy shit, And it's just like hopping around on one leg, in order to be something. It's the ego thing again, over and over again.
So what happens to us when we die? Why reincarnation?
We leave this place.
Why reincarnation? Why do we go back to this place?
We don't have to go back to a place. Maybe we go to somewhere else.
Where we can choose.
Of course.
So why do a lot of people choose to come back? Is that because they're misled by other entities?
No. That is why it's so important before you die to clarify things. That is why it's so important to do spiritual practice, to purify yourself. So that the minute that you go over on the other side and you go through the astral planes, that you know exactly that you cut right through the whole thing, you know, the Archon thing and whatever illusions you might have created, and go straight back home to where you came from.
Source.
To source. And when you are there, I mean, this is something that can be very hard for us to understand, because in the world today, we think that the intellectual is the highest a man can get. But this is beyond, you know. I say, if I want to succeed with anything, I need to cut down this. Or if I start to interfere, I'll fuck everything up. You know, if I interfere with my books, I know what to do. I know how to open up the space for this information to come through. And I know a lot of people that don't believe in these things will say, oh, this is proof that this man is crazy. But this goes for Einstein, Niels Bohr, they all talk about it, that at some time they have to step aside in order for some higher identity take place and give the information. So this is what also happens if you have prepared yourself and you go straight to the source. All the things that we are talking about now is not an issue, because it's like Jung said when he was asked, do you believe in God? And he said, no, I know. And the interviewer was so taken by it that he forgot to put the most important question. What do you know? What is it you know? But he could not, because he was, you know?
So you can choose, and you only go back in the reincarnation treadmill if there is something you need to learn that you have not learned yet.
Also to clear up your mess, and through that clearing of your mess, get to the next level.
So the soul is not complete when it leaves the body. We are not complete entities as a soul, as a spirit being.
We are gathering experience in order to become the full potential that we are supposed to be. And that, when that's done, see it as like that aspect that we call God, this creative principle in the universe, are becoming more and more fulfilled, or more and more, your knowledge is part of that knowledge.
But why would God, the source, this all-powerful, let's just say creating entity, why would it not create a, let's say, complete soul?
It does.
So why do we need to go back again and again to obtain more knowledge?
This universe is a very young universe, and this is a universe created for a certain purpose. What's the purpose? Do you know that? Love. This is the one, and I know it sounds banal, but it is. And when entities come from other universes or other systems and come into our system, do you know why they come here? A lot of them come here because in their involvement with very, very advanced technology, in the process they forgot all about empathy, love, emotional, how to respond emotionally. And that's what some of them are coming back here to relearn, because they can see that without it they will just be. And you know what? That is exactly what humans are about to do. We hang our hat on that technology. That technology is the answer to everything. So we are on the exact same path into losing compassion. And you can see what's going on in the world today. A lot of people are just interested in their own satisfaction and their own, and they don't give a shit about other people. And that's why it's so primitive, but in a very sophisticated way now. So sophisticated that we think that, the ego can also give $100 to charity, and afterwards it needs something back for it. It doesn't give anything for free. So it wants the credit for it also. Nobody go and give $100 without everybody has to know it. Oh, I gave $100 to this and that. Yeah, and so?
It's about ambition, prestige, and being successful.
And it's the ego all the way, and we have to we need to challenge that and take it to the next. The ego, we need that while we are incarnated, but it has to be a servant of the higher self.
Your friend and mentor, the Seer that you've been speaking a lot about today, and been doing this documentary about, he said in an interview, I am not going to reincarnate again. This is my last time on Earth.
Yeah.
So he felt that he had come to this level or this understanding that he could actually choose, and he would not.
Everybody can choose. You can choose. I can choose.
Yes, and a lot of people maybe don't know that if they believe that they've been reincarnated a lot. So what will you choose, do you think, after this lifetime?
It depends on how I succeed in doing the things I need to do. If I don't succeed in the, I might come back here, or we also have what you would call guardian angels. Each and everyone has an entity there. Speak to that entity every day. This is actually where your prayers go, if so to speak, because this is an entity of light that you can confer with and you can get advice with. And sometimes that entity manifests itself on the physical plane. I have actually seen mine while I was in a car accident back home from France, where I was driving from southern France back to Denmark after a very, very intense period, and with the Seer. And I fell asleep driving. And the car was somersaulting and 5 meters down a field, and it was completely crossed. And
did that happen? And you survived, obviously.
I woke up and I thought I was dead. It was so silent. The first thing I saw was this young woman, standing in front of me, smiling, and said, "If you can survive this, you can survive anything." Beside me was a very worried German man. And at no time did they correspond to each other. And she had a cross exactly like this. Equal-footed cross. And the last thing I saw when I was taken with the ambulance were her waving and said, "Don't worry about a thing, everything is taken care of."
Do you believe this was a near-death experience?
When I came by, after I've hit the barrier between the room, I was going through that white tunnel, and I left my body behind in the car, meaning that my body had to fight its own fight. And if that car with my body had hit a tree, I would have no place to go back to. So I felt so, and it was so up. I came back here, opened my eyes. I was lying there on the ground
Could you see your body and the car crash?
It was just something that instantly I knew that I have left it, and I was just going out there. And until the car came to a stop, I came back when I was taken out there. And this German man said that I myself, almost unconscious, have stepped out of the car and just lie down 3 meters from the car. And he was afraid that it was going to explode, so he took me 50 meters away.
So this German man was a bystander?
Yeah, he was just driving behind me when it happened. Yeah, and his wife was in a shock, completely shocked about it.
So they actually came to your rescue?
Yeah.
Physically?
Yeah. But she, my guardian angel, was there, and nothing happened to me. I mean, there was not a,
Was it a light being?
It was just, she manifested, And there's so many...
looking humanoid?
Yeah. But young, completely,
blue-eyed,
purified, and just, and she's...
A lot of people talk about the Nordics looking a bit like that.
But there will be archetypes for all, for everyone, taking different shapes and colors that you can accept,
You have said pain is a messenger, and the message is wake up.
Yeah.
So what do you mean by that? If you would if you have a message for people in general.
Yeah, every time something bad happens to us or we go through some hard times, it is almost every time because we need to address certain things within ourselves. We have to find out that we are going down the wrong path or something, and we have to wake up from that so we can go back and find out, okay, I need to readjust or go somewhere else or whatever.
Is that true for all kinds of
Yes.
pain? All kinds of pain in your body has a message.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's something to deal with.
Yeah.
You speak Aramaic, the language that Jesus spoke. Are you able to say something in this language?
I would give you a very, very effective tool. It's a heart prayer. First of all, you need to breathe properly, meaning that when you inhale, your stomach must go out. You fill the stomach. And when you exhale, stomach in. Inhale, stomach out. Exhale, stomach out. Okay? So when this becomes automatically, the next thing you do is you inhale, you visualize that you inhale through the heart and exhale through the heart. And you use that Aramaic prayer, Rugada Kucha, Malkuta Deshemaya. Rugada Kucha, Malkuta Deshemaya. Meaning, Holy Spirit, Kingdom of Heaven. Holy Spirit, Kingdom of Heaven. Ruka de Kucha, Malkuta Deshemaya. Okay? This is my practice and it works wonders for me. It doesn't matter what I want to do. I can change things in a room by that. If you go into a situation where you think everything is tied up and there's tension in this room, I sit down somewhere and I start doing this practice without people knowing it. And within a very short time, everything is loosened up and I leave and go somewhere else. Just do it. Or you have some wine, yes? And it's so sour as piss. What do? You create a sacred space around that glass. You should actually feel that behind this point in your palm of your hand and this point, there is a communication. And when you are ready, you send from that point and down into the wine a gas blue light. Just feel it, how it just go down in. It can be water, it can be food. When you take some wine, go and buy the cheapest wine you can get, and you just make 2 glasses, one that you practice on, and the other one just keep it away. So you send the gas blue light in, and when you feel that this is enough, you send golden light from the tip of your fingers down in the wine. Yeah? And when you think that's enough, and you must really feel it, you close it. You taste it. Give it some more if you don't think it's good enough. And you just compare, and you will find that you can actually, through your own powers, change the vibration of that wine. So the most sour piss can be the most vintage wine you have ever smelled. This was something that Seer did. Just by looking at it, he combined everything. This is another thing I will show you now, that everybody can do. Whatever you want to do, this practice with creating this and doing this, and you can combine everything by doing. You sit down, connect to your breath, and then you say, this practice I now combine here. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm taking the horizontal and the vertical, and I combine it into one. And I'm holding that, and I take it into my heart, and just totally present in what I'm doing, leave it there. Meaning that from now on, I don't have to do all these things. I can just, as the seer, send my powers in there and change the frequency of this wine. Yeah? Go and do it. You can do it. And the fantastic things about this is when you have discovered that, wow, this is something the first thing I tell people on my courses. Listen, we have 2 days here. When you go home today, after the first day, go home and buy the cheapest wine you can get and do what I've just told you. Because tomorrow when you come back, you will come with a complete new what kind of approach to what I'm going to tell you, because now you have experienced yourself that you are able. It's not something you read about that the seer could do. Now you have done it.
Will the wine change its flavor? Will it taste better?
Yeah, of course. Or else there will be no, it will be not fun doing it, you know. And the seer did that again and again. Why? Not to show off. He didn't tell me in the beginning, because when we are walking around in the Pyrenees, you come into a small village. They only have one wine, the local one, and they are usually very bad, you know. So we needed a glass of wine. The seer wanted a glass of wine just to calm down, and he said, "Oh, again, one of these disgusting things." And he just, "Let me have a look at it." "Okay, try it." I said, "Wow. Does it need a little more?" He said, "Yeah, okay, give it a little more."
And he was using first a gas blue light and then a golden light, imagining a golden light.
First of all, create the holy space. Meaning that now I'm here. I'm not there. I'm here now, and I'm creating a space.
Point of attention.
Yes. And this, you must be one with things. There's another secret to things is, if you want to know about something, it can be a glass, the history of a person. You don't need to look at somebody. You don't have to look into somebody. You're not there to expose somebody. You have to become one with that, you know? This is the thing to be present. Do you know that in the Aramaic language, there's no word for sin? And, you know, the whole Christianity is built on sin. But there is no such thing as sin as we understand it. That word, katar, really means to miss the mark. It's an archer who take an arrow and a bow, and he just try to hit the mark. And he misses it. Why do he miss it? Because he's not present. You know? So again, you have what it really means. If you want to succeed in anything, you have to be there. You have to be one with that target, or else you won't. And a lot of people think, "Oh, I was almost there," and it works wonders. But just think, if you really hit the mark, what difference it would make in your life with everything you do. This is the teaching of Yeshua, for Christ's sake. This is what it's all about. It's not about, I don't know, all the crap, it is for a direct message from him to you, to us, of follow my example and do even greater wonders than I. I'm not the only one. You are all children of God, but I was the first one. He was the first soul. He was that metaphorical person we called Adam, but he was not 6,000 years old.
But do you believe in gurus and guru worship?
We are a long time past that.
But isn't that a form of guru worshipping?
Which one? Talking about Jesus?
Suggesting that he said, "Follow my example, I was the first."
Listen, if you have something you know about making glasses, and you see people, they want to make glasses, but they cannot find a way. You go and say, "Listen, you can do like this. If you do like I do, you can make a perfect glass." I'm sorry, this is why I was born. I was born to tell you about how to make a perfect glass. I understand if you're not interested, but then you cannot drink, You need to have something to drink from. This is what it's all about. It's only in our brains we are creating all this stuff. And a lot of so-called spiritual teachers out there, they think they have to dress and act like something that they are not, We are just, ordinary people, assholes like anybody else. But I have spent almost all my life doing this. And this is my work, It's like a shoemaker. He makes shoes. I do this.
Each person speak their truth.
Yes, for Christ's sake.
A lot of people, you mentioned the golden light. A lot of people say that the golden light is actually more pure than the so-called white light, and that you could actually use golden light for protection around you.
I'm not
imaginary.
I'm not saying that. I can use the gas blue light for the physical thing, and I can bless it with the golden light, and it makes a whole. because I take everything into consideration. We are incarnated souls on Earth, meaning that we have to address certain things happening here. We have to be involved without forgetting ourselves of who we are and why we were in the first place,
So what are your thoughts on mind-expanding drugs such as ayahuasca, DMT, and also, let's say, mushrooms, LSD, for accessing the spiritual realm? Are you for that or against it? Is that the true way of doing it, or is it like a negative shortcut?
I've been there, okay? Being in the rock business, you know all about drugs, LSD and stuff like that. And if you go into any of the known mystery schools, they didn't use drugs, It is a shortcut, and you can have certain experiences there, and you can have openings into other realms and stuff like that.
Illusionary realms or real?
Also real, but it's only limited because if you are not there, you will have what do you call it when you trespass, in a way, into areas that you are not.
It's not clear-minded.
No, and meaning that when you come back, there you will actually see, and I've seen that a lot of times, people having what do you call it, holes in their light body, in their astral layers, and shadows because of drugs and because of, and also if there's another thing, this is something that even the Dalai Lama addresses. He said that you must remember you were raised and born here where you have Christianity, and you need to go deeper into Christianity. And he said, I don't understand people being shamans, Tibetan shamans or Native American shamans or whatever, because this was something that was meant for certain souls was born and raised there. You are here and you must go into this tradition, but you must go into esoteric tradition of Christianity. And this is what I've been working with all my years.
But just because you're born in a certain place, that doesn't mean that this is the right way.
No. But there is a purpose of you. You have chosen to be born here, yes? So you should not forget there is a reason for that. Doesn't mean you can go anywhere else. You can go to the end of the world, no problem. But remember that there is certain things that you needed to go here and investigate.
So what does the Dalai Lama say about, let's say, European or American people becoming Buddhists?
He didn't understand that. He said that loud and clear when he was in Copenhagen last time. I don't understand they dress up like Buddhist monk when they have Christianity. They should only go deeper. They should go to the Esoteric tradition.
But what if they don't feel they want to be Christian in the way they were brought up?
Because they don't know about what it has to offer. That's a problem. Do you know why Yogananda, he wrote a huge work called The Second Coming of Christ? Very, very fantastic, 2 huge books about it. Because that was also his message. And he did it for our sake. He said, listen, all these things that we have in India has another color to Christ.
What if it feels more right for people than what they were brought up with?
Everybody must do what they have to do.
What if they don't want to be religious?
There's no set rules for anybody. I'm not telling, I have no dogmatic suggestion for anybody. I'm only speaking from my experience, and people can use it for whatever reason they want. Take it in and be inspired by it, or throw it away. I'm not the one to judge about that.
Do you know anything about lucid dreaming?
Yes.
And the significance of lucid dreaming?
Of course.
Please share that.
When I was working with the Seer, at one time after my 3rd year with him, I had to go through a certain phase that he sent me away to a cheap hotel in Monseigur, and I didn't understand what was going on. And that night I went to hell. I went through all kind of, I wouldn't even tell you what it is, but I've written about it in my book, the Magdalene book. And this was going on for half a year. Every night I had to go through all this shit. And when I wake up in the morning, I was as tired as Methuselah. But after I took a shower, I had so much energy that I was almost above the ground for the rest of the day, and it became too much. I was attracting dogs, birds, people I didn't know came. Everybody wanted to get in contact with me, and I didn't know for what reason. But you see, because I was in a collective kind of hellish dimension, my job there was to witness these things, and by witnessing them, kind of transforming them, because behind any shadow, being personal or shadow or collectively, there is the other
black and white yin and yang.
So behind everything where we don't really want to go, that is why when Jesus went to hell and did this, healed all those souls, it was kind of taking the middle, the dark side of it, and turning it over.
But if you would also now be addressing people who are not necessarily following the Bible as literally that you obviously do when you talk about Jesus, what would be your message to other people, just people in general, about facing the darkness? Isn't that what you mean?
Yeah.
That you have to face the darkness in order to see the light, or to go through
if people have to face the darkness. They have to face their own shadows.
Shadows.
Mine have been not only to face it, but to walk straight into it. And that's why I say religion is for those who are scared of going in there, while spirituality is for those who went there.
But you're talking about religion a lot, and
religion.
religious
When
figures.
I'm talking about religion, institutional religion as we know it, the churches and all this stuff. When you started this conversation, this was part of your first question. How being a Christian, what do I mean by that? And I mean that if we follow the words of Christ, this is the difference between me and these churches, is that I go there, I just don't. It's not just an intellectual thing. And through my experiences also in rock and roll and in showbiz, you are kind of so attached to also the hellish spheres, not because I think it's a bad place to be rock and roll, nothing at all. There's so many fantastic people there, enlightened people there. But being in the middle of it, it's like going into the darkness, and by creating music and songs, you create either darkness or light.
Really? Do you feel that?
It is your choice. You can do either one. And it doesn't
How
matter.
do you create darkness? Through music?
When you're not conscious about what you do and you follow, it's popular to have death metal, for example. But if you go in and see what death metal really do to your organism, to your physical body, for example, it can be instrumental maybe for a very short period of time to take you to the hellish regions within yourself and face some of the demons, face your own demons, your own shadow. But if you got lost there, it becomes a kind of religion in itself. And you are worshipping some part of yourself that you really just have to transform it. But instead of transforming it, you are revering it. And that was not meant to be like that. So we were given free choice and free will, and we can do whatever we want. There was a banker who came to me one day, and he said by accident somebody had given him a spiritual book, and now he found out that working with money was dirty. What can I do? So I asked him, are you good at your job? Yes, I'm one of the best. Do you like it? Yes, but I feel I cannot, my conscience tells me that I cannot do it. And I had to say to him, listen, if there's something the world needs now, it's spiritual bankers. But I see that you should make your own business as an advisor to economical society. And that's what he did, and now he earns 3 times as much, and he can choose exactly where to do. He is also even working for the bank he was working for before. But now, if there's something he don't want to be involved in because he thinks it's dirty business, he's just saying you must find somebody else to do that. So
then it's still part of this power structure, though, huh?
No, because we are all part of everything that is going on. Everything else is an illusion. We are here and we are without us knowing it. Everything you buy, those who make these are maybe also involved in making bombs somewhere else. You don't know. So
I'll remember that the next time I eat rice
I don't know.
cakes.
Sorry, a rice cake makers. I don't. I'm not. But you know what I mean. There's so much, So we cannot know. But what we can do, I always say it doesn't matter if you are the boss of one big international film, or you are a striptease dancer in Soho in London. What you need is to take it to the next level, to raise anything. There's nothing wrong with being a striptease dancer, nothing. But it must be taken, raised to a higher level. And if we do that, maybe the boss of this big firm, he think, I cannot be in this business. I need to go and be a striptease dancer. Or the other way around, or whatever.
So there's nothing
wrong with
anything of that, but it has to do with what you do with
why
it,
are you in the weapons industry? Why? The minute you find out, I cannot stand here and put together something that will, in the end, will kill somebody else. I cannot be part of this. Okay, leave it. And if you're conscious about it, you can. But most people, they say, yeah, but what I'm going to do if I haven't got this job, I can go nowhere. If you do this with a pure heart, and you say, I cannot do this because of this, please help me to find where I'm going to. And there's no problem. You'll go out there, and next day you'll have a new job or whatever.
So it really doesn't matter if you do certain things that has a low frequency, or what do you call it, more darker frequency?
It has only to do with the choice you make. And if you are staying there in that job, knowing what you're part of, and you're not leaving it behind because you are scared, you're creating so much noise. If you don't know nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. But the minute you get conscious about what you're part of, you need to take it seriously and act accordingly.
So what are your thoughts? That leads me to talk about, I think your granddaughter has become like a reality show star, a little bit, with something called sugar dating, which you would think that somebody like Lars Muhl, who is doing all of the spiritual work, would be so far removed from this kind of reality dating. What are your thoughts on that?
Jesus, he was amongst prostitutes and drunks and tax collectors, because he knew that this is just a label that people put on this, and you have if you're a tax collector, you're not a good person. If you're a striptease dancer, you are not a good person. This is you who has fucked up. It's not the tax collector or you're the judgmental people. I happen to know my grandchild, and I know how brilliant a person she is, but I also know she has to go through her incarnation and have to go through certain things in order to experience certain things. And I know in the end that she will take all that inspiration, all those experiences, and collect them to transform everything anew and present herself in a new way and say, I have been there. Don't talk to me about sugar dating or prostitution or whatever labels you put on me. I know the whole thing, all the tricks in the book. You cannot fool me. But I have to tell you, from my experience, when you go into this area, so and so and so and so on. I have dealt with a lot of hookers, a lot of junkies, for example, who come to me for help. Listen, I have been a junkie for 30 years.
But why do you think that is happening to your own grandchild when you're such a great example and you are
my grandchild is a great example. She has a lot of followers, and she's really she's taking people on her ride to show them what to do and how you can also do things and what not to do. Yeah.
Another way that you've also become quite controversial, but also, let's just say, we will see now your soul in flames that we began talking about. Yeah. That is the very current issue and topic of the implementation of 5G. 5G not only here in Denmark, but in all of Scandinavia and so many places around the world.
Yes.
Although we have seen places like Brussels, the former EU capital, that have said no to 5G, but please talk about 5G. What are your thoughts on 5G? Why is that a danger? You're talking about it being a danger to our health.
It's not only a danger to the physical health, but very much to the spiritual also, because it interferes with that faculty that is between you and the realms, you know, the higher, you know, if you take, everything has energy. If you take a stone, it has a certain kind of energy. If you take a flower, it has a certain. If you take an animal, it has a certain kind of. If you take a human being, there is a kind of energy field around a person. Yes.
Made of atoms, and atoms have no solidity.
There's a collective kind of consciousness particle, you could call it. It's the bridge to the next step, you know. But if this light body, as we call it, at the time of Jesus, it was called the robe of glory. Mm-hmm. And all the chakras also had names. The base chakra was the first heaven, second heaven, third heaven, fourth heaven, fifth heaven, sixth heaven. I was in the seventh heaven, yes. So these were names or concept that was used of that robe of glory, which meant that when you were initiated, they said they were having that robe of glory, and it was now enlightened in order for you to go to the next step. But when you surround yourself with technologies that is so primitive as 3D, 4D, and 5D, it has an impact on that light body, meaning that it will slow down a lot of people's you know, what do we call it, when to awaken, you know, a lot of people to suppress. I was in Brussels the other day doing work there. When I came out from the plane and down to the hall, I was standing up there looking around just to see if I could find one person who was not looking in here. And what is this?
On the phone.
Is this presence? No. So present is to take that away and be here where we are now. Just imagine if you were looking down that telephone and I was, and we were just sitting communicating, and we were sitting there. We are putting some shield up between us, and we cannot communicate because you and I can communicate here, you know, and here. So that is all closed down, slowly. And the sad part about 5G is that there is actually a technology that is so much more faster and more powerful, and it's healthy also using it, called Li-Fi. But you know, there's so much money involved in this, and those who are in charge of this 5G, they want it to be implemented now, so we cannot get rid of it overnight when we find out what it's all about. You know, nobody are talking about the damage that is always been done by 2D and 3D and 4D.
The electromagnetic radiation, yes, coming from these frequencies.
Exactly. And I feel it so much, you know.
How do you feel it?
I feel it on my light body is really sometimes it's too much, you know.
But that's manifesting on your physical body then?
Also, yes. But I can feel it, you know, like in my light body also. Mm-hmm. So it's really powerful.
On the 5th of May 2019, just a little over a month ago, there was the 5G conference held at the Parliament in Copenhagen, mm-hmm, where lots of scientists from different countries and those few politicians who are going against their political party, yeah, saying that they do not agree that we should have 5G, yeah, rigged up everywhere. Mm. And these scientists, highly educated, talked about the health risks and dangers of that. But the Minister of Health, or the previous ones, we just had a change now in the government. We had an election. Said that it was okay, that there is no problem. Mm-hmm. That the scientists who are coming out in the mainstream media are saying that there is no problem with this electromagnetic radiation coming from 5G.
The problem with politics today all over the world is the huge lobbyism from the industries that goes on. So actually it is the industries who are the real rulers of the world, and they pay off scientists and politicians in order to get their way. And that's what they are doing, exactly that. You know, in Denmark, I have only one question, because everything they have based the acceptance of 5D is one scientist only. And his kind of results are being criticized massively by international scientists. But the politicians in Denmark won't hear that. Even the 247, any child can go out and click it and check it out. They have all signed them from all over the world.
247
yeah.
what?
Scientists
Have said what?
doctors, that 5D is a huge risk to health. And already 3D and 4D have proved to be a health. And 5D will be on another scale, you know. So, but my only question, the only thing I really have said in this is, tell me just why don't you listen to those people? If there's any doubt about this, should that doubt not benefit the public, the Danish citizens? Why should it benefit the industry? That's my only question, and nobody can answer that. Nobody. The next thing is they have said, because I've done some videos about it, is now they call me almost that I am spreading fear and misinformation from Russia. You know.
Yeah, the Danish television, Denmark's radio.
To silence me. And because, you know, they have to prove to me now that those 247 scientists all over the world are actually Russian trolls or being spreading misinformation. This is obviously what they mean, or else they wouldn't go and say, because that is the results I put forward. This is what I'm talking about.
So it has nothing to do with Russian disinformation.
I don't think there's any Russian scientists in there. I don't know, but they have to come and present me with proof that it is so. And if they cannot do that, they have to take into consideration those scientists' warnings. Or else it's very bad for the democracy and for the citizens' health. And this is the only thing I'm saying.
But speaking of democracy, all of the parties, and we have a lot in Denmark, more so than in other countries, they have all voted yes, even on the very left side, left wing, and also on the right wing side.
I tell you one thing. When this is information I have from a politician who told me that how it was done, it was just, they had a huge pack of different issues to decide. And 5D was just, a little thing in between, a lot more. And there was some serious issue that some of them were very much interested in to get their way. So they used all the energy in that, and they just accepted everything. Nobody was really talking about what is this all about. Oh, this is just the next step. And Denmark has, of course, to be technology-wise, we have to be in the first division. So that is why, and everybody accepted it. Nobody was really told about the health risk, or they were told, our scientists say that it's health, there's no risk. Oh, fine, good.
So it was presented like a little footnote.
Yeah, it was nothing really. And now, some of them are having second thoughts, but they are only maybe single politicians within a party that think we need to take it all away. And here, a few weeks ago, the police intelligence agency and the Army's intelligence agency had two representatives going into the Danish government and telling all the members that all information about vaccines and 5D and America's contract was all placed by Russian. It was Russian misinformation. And if you track that down, it's due to an article in New York Times, who's really working together with Verizon, who is one of the greatest tele companies in America. And they have said that this information comes from Russia Today, America. And if you go in and check what they have said about 5G, they are only presenting what American scientists and European scientists have said about it. So there's really no Russian misinformation. So you have to believe that all those 247 scientists all over are actually working for Russia. And I would like to see proof of that, or else it's just, forget about this Russian thing. Let's focus on those 247 scientists. And
so do you think that these other people, even the politicians through these intelligence services, really, they are spreading disinformation?
I don't know, but it's something that you could easily believe, because, or else what is it? If you cannot prove that these 247 scientists are actually working for Russia or spreading Russian misinformation, it's just another hoax. That is misinformation. But I would like to see that proved, or else they have to go out and tell the public, listen, we have 247 of some of the very important people here who think that 5G is dangerous. What do you think we should do about it?
What do you think we should do about it?
That doubt should benefit the citizens and not the industry. Yes?
What can we do in order to put more awareness to this situation and to maybe change the possibility of this even being a reality?
I have a son, 14 years old. He can go out on the internet, and even children. It's so easy. It's just go by the link, see where it takes you. Investigate. And if you have a little bit of sense, you can see where it takes you, and you can check them all out. Each and every of these persons that have signed this, you can go into the file and see them. They are standing there beneath that document. It's out there, and you can check every of them and see where do they come from, what do they work for, and how do they work for.
Even smart meters are mandatory here in Denmark to put up.
We had a smart meter nobody told us. We had solar cells, and when we had them installed, they changed something out there, and our meter is in the middle of the house. And suddenly, after we had those solar cells, our son had nose blood almost all the time. We were tired, I had headaches, and we were really, until somebody told us, have you checked out if you have this smart meter? We have never heard anything about it. Yeah, and so we checked it out and we saw, yes, this is a smart meter. So Gita, my wife, she phoned the company and said, listen, you have 1 hour to come and take it down, or else I'm going to smash it with a hammer. And they said, you cannot do it. It's by law. By law. How can you dictate isn't it a free country? This is a democratic country, and I don't want it. We are getting sick of it. So if you're not going to move it within an hour, we will smash it. They came and took it out. So now we have an old meter that we are paying for somebody who come to read it every year in order to tell us how much we have used and how much to pay. And from that moment on, the noseblood stopped and all the other symptoms stopped. There is a politician that we interviewed on our channel that told us the same story. He had this meter in, and he started to get all kinds of...
Eric Messman, yes.
And the minute they took it away, it stopped.
But it's mandatory and a lot of electricity companies are threatening people to cut off the electricity.
But actually, they cannot do
to
that.
it.
They cannot do that. You cannot do something like that to people. If you get sick from it, you must take action, and you must go and tell them, listen, I'll go take this all the way, and I'll take it down to Brussels or whatever. I go to lawyers now to settle it. You can go and do what you want, but you can never win this case, and they can't.
So you can ask them to,
of course,
to take away the smart meter.
If that is something that somebody said you cannot do, then you must you must act accordingly. You must raise your voice and stand up for it.
Mm-hmm. So what can people do if we will have this 5G, or even the 5G grid around Earth that they talk about? What can people do to shield themselves?
The best thing is to get some information about what 5G is and what it does. And a lot of people, unfortunately, if I ask them, do you know about 5G? Oh, 5G, is that a new computer game? No, I think. It is a kind of game, but it's a game of your health with your health. Oh, I haven't heard about that. And this is the real crime that nobody have informed the citizens about. What we are going to do this, and you are all kind of laboratory rats now, because this is a test. We need to see how this works. We need to wake up and take action. That's a message. So from the grassroots on, and this is already happening, with Thunberg and the climate story from Sweden, and more and more youngsters are
Greta Thunberg,
yes,
who
yes.
is
exactly
the 16-year-old Swedish girl,
yes.
climate change.
And you can see.
What are your thoughts on that? That has become the most talked about topic in Denmark at the moment, and we had just had an election the other day. We are now in June 2019, and a lot of the politicians, they use their political campaign to advocate the fight against climate change. It's become hugely, let's just say, a popular topic, but a lot of alternative researchers have actually come out and said that that is political propaganda. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, everybody can see that.
In what way?
How everything is, Go to the poles, see Greenland, go to Norway and see what is happening up there. I have friends who are actually standing right there now, filming it, to prove how it gets worse and worse every day.
So you do believe in the climate change?
I don't. I know.
You know?
Yes.
Oh.
And this is not something new. This has been known for years. The Seer said it long before anybody talked about it.
But do you believe it's a man-made crisis, as they said?
Yes.
You do believe that?
I know that.
Oh.
So, and this is my...
But how do you know that?
I'm in a very unfortunate position that I can see through these things. And I cannot dismiss what I see. On the other hand, I cannot back it up with facts. I see things and I can tell you how it's going to be. But this is not something I go around bragging about or something. It has nothing to do with that or show off. Tonight, sit down before you go to bed, and what you have just asked me, ask the board upstairs, which is your own higher consciousness. Ask, and you'll get the question, and you'll get the answer. The problem of us today is we are living in a world of questions, and we are seeking answers in a world of questions. Both Einstein, Niels Bohr, and these people, they knew that they had to go to the world of answers in order to get them. And when you are looking for them in the world of questions, you are just working within the physical field. They knew that in order to find answers for the physical, you needed to go to the metaphysical.
But certain questions that you ask are obviously so controversial, especially if millions of people around the world believe it.
What do you mean?
And if you can orchestrate, let's just say, a problem, and then come up with a solution after having a massive reaction, problem, reaction, solution, could what some alternative researchers and highly educated researchers who are no longer allowed to speak in the public domain, what they say about climate change, that it is not real, that the climate is not changing as much as we think, that it is a natural progressing procedure.
I don't know if poisoning rivers and the sea with plastic is natural. I don't know.
Of course it is not natural.
Okay, so...
But does it change the climate?
It does. The climate is the sea, is the water, is the soil, is everything. Everything is connected. And if you think that you just look out there and say, oh, it's all together. And if you poison the earth and you poison the water, it has an effect on the whole thing. And actually, Mother Earth has been crying now for more than 50 years, 70 years.
Yes, they wrote about it in the quite secretive political think tank that they created in 1968 called the Club of Rome. They actually talked about climate change as a future possible political agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
So if people want to learn more about your incredible work, you're doing lots of workshops and lectures, and you're writing books, and you're actually having these workshops all over the world. How can they get this information if they are in different countries, not just in Denmark?
I have a website where there is a calendar telling where I'm going, so people can see, okay, I'm going to... Last weekend I was in Brussels, this weekend I'll be in Munich, so forth. So you can in advance, month in advance, see, oh, he's going there. If I want to go to this workshop, you can press this link and you can be connected to those who arrange this thing.
Please say your website.
It is larsmuhl.com or larsmuhl.dk. They are both valuable.
And you're also doing a lot of videos that people can find on YouTube and Vimeo?
Also, yes.
So please talk about your latest book. It's just actually coming out today, isn't it?
The book is called The Savior of the World. And it's really a book I wrote while I was lying sick at Samsung in 1997. And at the same time, while I was in bed, and don't ask me how it came by, and there was another book called The Prophecy of Freya. And I wrote a book for a song for the song contest, Europe Song Contest, because at that time this was before I met the Seer, I was still connected to a record company. And they wanted me to write a song for somebody there because I had a contract, you know. So they obviously, and I hadn't been that active up to then, and now I was lying in bed. So it said, and we need you to fulfill your contract. So I wrote that song, and nobody could really sing it. So before I knew anything about it, I was standing there. You can see it on YouTube, and when you see that man behind dark glasses singing that song, you'll say, he's from another planet. I even don't recognize me himself. So, you know, I really have no recollection of me doing it. And also for this book. But how did they come by? Because I was not present as an ego. So I could not interfere with the information who came in and became the story that is coming out today. But all of them, the song for the song contest was called Europe. And it's all about migration and homelessness, everything that is come by now and is part of very much an issue now. And also the other books, the Prophecy of Freya is really a message to our time right now. And the other book that is coming out now, the same way, it's a story about a man who is in an asylum for the insane. He have lost his consciousness. He cannot remember anything, who he is and what. And I think it's just a metaphor about us today, right now. And all the characters that is in that book is part of the story of now, right now. We need to come by to ourselves and remember who we are, where we come from, what we are doing here, and where we are going. And so this small story is about an individuation process of not knowing who we are and in the end remembering who you really are and start to act accordingly.
You've certainly gone through an amazing transformation in your life, and I know that you're a great inspiration to a lot of people. And it's been very fascinating and exciting, extraordinary to have this dynamic conversation with you. And I want to thank you very much, Lars Muhl, for doing this interview with Age of Truth.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you very much to Lars Muhl, and thanks to all of you for watching Age of Truth TV. You can support us by clicking onto our website, ageoftruth.tv. And please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and hit the bell for notifications. Your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.